I gotta react to this comment because it is a very interesting one, first and foremost. But of course, if you're a member, I will respond to your comment most of the time. So I encourage you to write more comments if you're a member. Uh, so basically, what this comment says is, wow, excellent observations towards the end. I was thinking of a Khan Adinkra system, call and response, and drum technology as memories of shared experiences. This is from my video, The Secrets Behind Ethiopia's Temples, where I show the connection between the old temples and the new temples. Now, addressing what he's saying about drum language, Adinkra, and a lot of symbolism, the main point about it is that symbols, I mean, this has been a topic in a lot of places. Symbols is what makes a separation between human beings and animals. The fact that we can give information or we can give relevance or importance to something that would otherwise have no relevance or no importance. For example, this giant pillar here that can represent the other world in a literal sense for some of the Ethiopians, or words and languages and symbols and writing, drum language. And of course, we're very aware of symbols from ancient Egypt, symbols from West Africa, which have still not been deciphered to this day, symbols from the Bantu regions, from Great Zimbabwe, where people said that there were writings that they could not decipher. The whole thing about symbols within Africa and the cultural continuity is something that makes me think the only way we can solve it is by looking at Africa as a whole. One of the things that I used to think about a lot is, but first I have to know all of the symbols in the Zulu writings, but is taking Zulu writings and then sending them to someone who can use Zimbabwean writing and then see if there's any real similarities, which I think there will be, and then send it to another. I saw a video, which I've posted before, but I will spare you, where there was a bunch of people, four experts. One was an expert in Nigerian symbols, one was a symbol in South African symbols, one was an expert in symbols in general, so European, Asian, all of that. And they basically sit down and started comparing, and they could easily see the similarities and the differences. And it became obvious, and it's now known around the world amongst experts that Africans had symbols which could be considered pre-writing. So, in other words, it's enough to pass a message, but not enough to have the message be like writing a sentence today. Like, you would definitely be better off writing a full sentence. Now, just since you mentioned Adinkra, I want to mention something. There was a scientist from America, a black scientist, who apparently came up with a new theory in mathematics, who actually utilized the name Adinkra because of his black heritage. He utilized the name Adinkra for a scientific thing.
So where has this pursuit taken you?
Oh my God.
Where have you landed?
Why would you ask that?
I'm asking you that here and now. It's New York City. It's March 7th.
Well, partly it's taken to these very strange images that are behind your head right now. These are pictures of equations. I've been, for the last 15 years, trying to answer the kinds of questions that my colleagues here have been raising. And what I've come to understand is that there are these incredible pictures that contain all the information of a set of equations that are related to string theory. And it's even more bizarre than that, because when you then try to understand these pictures, you find out that buried in them are computer codes just like the type that you find in a browser when you go surf the web. And so I'm left with the puzzle of trying to figure out whether I live in the matrix or not.
These symbols that are called Adinkra are used in supergravity and supersymmetry. And as he mentioned there, they are used for computer code, the symbols that he sees. And when I watched this whole thing, he made the equation or the thought that you could use 3D space to calculate simple mathematics as well. So if you put like some algebraic thing, it could be broken down, and by simply moving one of these patterns, you could get an answer. So this is like very smart stuff that I do not understand, but I did take the time to watch it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Now, let's just read what it says. In supergravity and supersymmetry represent theory, Adinkra symbols are a graphical representation of supersymmetric algebras. There you go, algebras. Mathematically, they can be described as colored, finite, connected, simple graphs that are bipartite and n-regular. Their name is derived from Adinkra symbols of the same name, and they were introduced by Michael Foe or Fox and Sylvester James Gates in 2004. Now, I want to say something about it. The name of Adinkra is what they took, but it is not exactly, it's not the same. Like, these are two completely different concepts. It was just taken as a because the Adinkra in Africa symbolize something greater, which, a lot of people look at it as like maybe a language or something, but it's a little bigger than that, which we can talk about another time. What I will mention is that these symbols are pretty old and they go together with a bunch of symbols, one of them being codes, not computer codes, but codes, another one being mathematics, which is underrepresented when people talk about the Adinkra. And then the third one, of course, being symbolic representation, much like you would see in a language. And I can easily declare this because this is visible within all Bantu type people. They have a version of this. So Bantu people and West Africans all have a version of this. And then we have it in East Africa in a different way. And then we have it in North Africa as well. I've had tons of videos explaining that some of these symbols are still the same. Like some of the triangles and stuff mean the same thing from north to south. And think about how difficult it like think about a triangle and the geometry that goes behind it. You don't get the proper angles and all of that by mistake. And while this one is represented in textiles, there is so much more going on. Some of it can be represented on the ground, on paper, whatever. So thank you to Pedro Kai XI6466 for being a member this month. And thank you for the question. And yes, drum language or drum technology and drum language and all of that other stuff. Call and response. I'm very happy that you also mentioned call and response. All of these things are important, strictly African innovations that boosted our societies by a lot. And of course, it's this is the amazing part. I actually watched another video today that was about a woman who talked about how people keep saying that we've addressed racism, we've addressed everything in the world, and now everything's fine. But yet, if you go to there, if you go to America, go to Africa, go anywhere really, still the highest achievements of Africans are not put out there, and the lowest times for some Black Africans, remember, not everyone was a slave, the lowest times are highlighted.